This conference will now be recorded.
Hello students, I'm Dr. Divya from TeenEinstein. So this class we are starting our new chapter number 7, how do organisms reproduce. So in the previous chapters like life processes and control and coordination, in those chapters and all, in the life process chapter, what we have learned about the life or what are living things, right? So based on special features, the things around us, we have classified the things around us as living and non-living things. And these living things, about that, we have learned in detail. So living things means they're having some special features, right? And they are doing some respiration, digestion, about all those processes we had discussed, right? To maintain the life, they were following some features like respiration, digestion, nutrition, all these for taking nutrients, and also all these processes were done for maintaining that life. So what about that's all about the life processes, right? So different processes were there to maintain the life. So in the next chapter, we learned about the control and coordination, how to control the living things. They have a mechanism for controlling and coordinating their body functions. About all this, to control the respiration, to control the digestion, there is a coordinated work of the body. So about that also we have learned in the next chapter. So in this chapter, one feature we had mentioned about the living organism, that is reproduction. Living organism will reproduce. So about reproduction, when we are saying, that is a main feature of living organism, and here we are learning how do organism reproduce. That is the chapter 7. About this we are discussing in this chapter. So first, the main topics of this chapter, that is reproduction in organism. Then in that, how organisms are reproducing, or what is the purpose of that reproduction. Okay, then do organisms create exact copies of themselves? Whether the organisms, while they're reproducing, whether that organisms are creating exact copies of their own, or is there any changes in the individuals which they are producing, or the offsprings which they are producing. Okay, next topic, mode of reproduction used by single organism. See, while learning about the life process, while learning about the living and non-living organism, we have learned about there are single-celled organism and multicellular organism. So how this single-celled organism, or those organisms were primitive forms of organisms, how they are reproducing, or what are all the modes or different methods they are using for reproduction. Then comes the sexual reproduction in plants, then sexual reproduction in animals, in human, especially we are learning about human reproduction. See, in plants, then going to the higher level in the multicellular organism, how they are reproducing. So in plants, how they are reproducing. Plants and animals both are in different kingdoms, so we can expect a variation or difference in the reproduction method also, right? So sexual reproduction in plants and sexual reproduction in human, about that also we are discussing in this chapter, right? So reproduction in organism, like the mechanism by which organisms are reproducing. So definitely a question will come, why these organisms are reproducing, or what is the reason of that reproduction. Okay, then why they are reproducing. Another question that normally we'll get, what is that? reproduction, is this a necessary process for maintaining life? So, is it necessary? This is the another question we'll get, right? Why organisms are reproducing and what is the importance or necessity of that reproduction? Okay, see, we know that this reproduction, that is not necessary to maintain the life of an organism, right? It is not important for maintaining life of that individual. See, like breathing, like nutrition, like the digestion, circulation, like all these, this reproduction is not necessary, right? Without reproduction also plants can grow, right? We have learned in while discussing about the features itself, we have learned without reproduction also organisms are living, right? So it's not a necessary or a compulsory process to maintain the life of organism, like all other essential life process like nutrition, respiration, excretion and all. Okay, but when an organism need to create, so to create more individuals, to create more individuals, to increase the number of organisms. See, one organism, it's not reproducing, and that's the end of that form of life, right? So if they want the same type of organism or next generation they need, means they need a reproduction. So if the organism is going to create more individuals, for that lot of energy will be spent in that process, right? So why should an individual organism waste their energy for this reproduction? Okay, because we said reproduction is not necessary for life or maintaining the life, right? So why they are spending that much energy to stay or to do that reproduction? So all these problems we are discussing here. Okay, so we know that organisms are reproducing. Okay, see, if there were to be only one organism, only one organism in that group, that existence of that form, only one organism, see, from some group, some species or some organism, which is A, B, C or X, Y, Z, whatever it may be, there is only one organism in that, means existence, that affects the existence of that particular group. So there is a large number of organisms belonging to single species. Like this, we are noticing so many, right? See, same species or different species, that concept of species, like how we will say about that, because they look similar to each other. So reproducing, that reproducing organism, they will create, they'll create what? They'll create a new individual. They'll create new individual, okay, which will be similar. They look similar. Similarities will be there, but differences also will be there. That is based on the mode of reproduction. Okay, so next question. So that is the importance. We said, is it necessary? What is the necessity? Why organisms are reproducing? This is the answer for that, for the existence. Okay, so next comes, do organisms create exact copies of themselves? See, we know that organisms, they look similar because their bodies designs are almost similar, right? Organisms, they look similar because their body designs are similar. See how their body looks similar. Organisms are different. See, I'm one individual and my parents, they're another individual. So how they are looking similar. See, if their body designs are to be similar, what we can say, these designs should be similar. Their blueprints of these designs should be similar. So this reproduction means what do you mean by reproduction? Then reproduction means making their copies. So in reproduction, what they will do, that is almost its basic level will involve the making copies of blueprints of body design. Making copies of blueprints of body design. Okay. See, here we are learning, like in the previous section or previous class itself, we have learned that the chromosomes, where chromosomes are present, chromosomes which is present in nucleus. See, in the nucleus of a cell, chromosomes are present, right? So this chromosomes, in that what is present in chromosome? DNA will be present, which is the genetic material or hereditary material that is containing the information, all the information for inheritance of features from parents to next generation in the form of DNA, right? These chromosomes are the genetic material. So these genetic materials are getting transferred while reproducing. That genetic material is getting transferred from parents to offsprings. This is going from parents to offsprings during reproduction, right? So while reproducing, some features of these parents are going to offsprings also. So these chromosomes or these genetic materials, they are the information center or storehouse of this information, which is helping to copy or to transfer some information from parents to offsprings. So this DNA, we said DNA, what this DNA will do? Deoxyribonucleic acid, what it will do? This DNA in the cell of the nucleus, that is the information source of making proteins. Information source of making proteins. Okay. So is there any change in that information, different proteins, this DNA will code for one type, or this will code for one protein. See, if there is any change in that codes of that protein making, any change in DNA, that may cause different protein, right? See, we know that while stitching a dress, a simple example we can explain. While stitching a dress, if you are cutting in one pattern, all the dresses will be similar, right? If we are cutting, that cutting is going in different pattern, dress pattern also will change. So like that, the information source of making protein, if that is similar, it will code, it will form only one type of protein, that is creating one type of character. If there is any change in that DNA, any change due to several reasons, changes may happen. So any change in the DNA, that will code for different protein. Okay. So that will, this different protein means that will change the body features. Okay. The change in body features or body designs also will come. Right. So the basic event in reproduction, that is the creation of DNA copy. That is a basic event. Okay, so cells use chemical reaction to build up copies of this DNA. So to create two copies of DNA in a reproducing cell, and they will need to be separated. These copies need to be separated from each other. So two copies of DNA that will be created in a reproducing cell. So while dividing, this will get separated from each other. So keeping one copy of DNA in the original cell and pushing the other or newly created to the other cell, that will not work. Okay, so two copies of DNA will be there. So one keeping here and another one pushing simply outside means that is not possible. That's impossible, because the copy which is pushed out, that will not have any organized cellular structure for maintaining that life process, right? So see, if a cell want two copies, see, like this, two copies are created. One they can keep in cell, and whichever they that don't want, that can push it outward. But there should be some protection. It should be inside some cell for maintaining the life process. So the DNA copying, the copying of DNA, that is accompanied by cell division also. Okay, so there will be creation of additional cellular apparatus. So these copies will separate with a cellular apparatus. Okay, then these two cells, they will be almost similar, and they'll be they will look similar, like all components which are present in that cell will be present here also, but that copying of this genetic material, that may be different, right? So as a result of this DNA copies which are generated, that will be almost similar. The DNA copying may not be identical. That may not be identical to the original one. Okay. So that's how variations are getting created. Okay, all cellular components will be there, but DNA copying, that may vary. So that may lead to variations. Clear? Now we said variations are getting created. Okay. So just we need to discuss the importance of that variation. So variations while copying, while division of cell, that DNA copying, that time variations are getting created. So what is the importance of that variation? See, here in different places, organisms, population of organism, different populations of organisms we can see, where in different places, in particular defined place, we can see a particular group of organism, right? So in the ecosystem, we can see like this. So according to their ability, they will reproduce, right? There also reproduction is taking place. So the consistency of DNA copying during this reproduction, that is important. So here also, while reproducing, that DNA copying will take place, right? Copying of DNA will take place. That is important for the maintenance of body design. Okay, and for a particular niche, for a particular place or a particular environment, there should be some defined features for that organism. So that DNA copying, that is very important for the reproduction. While reproducing, the DNA copying is also important, and that is linked. This is linked to the stability of population. Stability of population of that particular species. See, sometimes environmental conditions may change, like temperature may go up, temperature may go down, and water levels that may change. So that and all not under the control of these organisms. Okay. So there may be drastic change. And if these organisms are not able to adjust with the environmental condition, the organisms are not able to adjust with the environmental condition, then what will happen? There, they may die. Right. So if they're dying, what will happen? That species or that particular group of organism will get wiped out of this earth. Right. So for the existence, there will be changes. So slightly their characters or features that will change. Okay. So while changing, while making that changes itself, see some particular group of organism, they are not able to tolerate. See the temperature, which is increased due to global warming, if they are not able to tolerate that condition, among in a species, suppose 100 individuals are there, among that some 20 may die, or some 80 organisms may die, 80% may die, 20% may survive. So this surviving ones will be having that capacity to tolerate that increased temperature. Okay, so that creates a variation. So first it was like they were intolerable to that temperature increase, but 20% of them survive. That means there is a slight change. Okay, so those few variants which are able to resist that heat, that would survive and they will grow further. Then from next reproduction is starting from these 20%. So that copies are getting generated. So variation, definitely variation is useful for the survival. So we can say variation is important for the survival of organism. Okay, right? So that is the importance of variation. Variations may happen. So that variations may be due to environmental changes or some other, which is for the existence. So for the existence and for the survival of that organism, variation is important. Okay, so that species over time, that may help for the survival. Clear? So here you are getting two questions. Okay, we said reproduction means that is the integral feature of all organisms or all living beings. So the process by which living beings are produced, that is called as produce its own types, that is called as reproduction. Then what is the importance of reproduction? We said, see, reproduction, that is important for each species because this is the only way for living being to continue their lineage, right? And this reproduction, apart from that, that is important for the whole ecosystem. So reproduction helps in maintaining a proper balance among various biotic constituents of ecosystem. So moreover, this reproduction, that is facilitating evolution because variations come through reproduction. So over several generations, these variations are, it's not a sudden process, the variations or that evolution, we have learned about evolution. So evolution that is happening through this continuous, over generation it is happening. Over several generations, that variations are getting created, and that is coming as evolution. Okay, and there are types of reproduction. Okay, sexual reproduction is there, sexual reproduction is there. So here we are getting two important questions. What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction? What is the importance of DNA copying in reproduction? See, here we can write how we need to write the answer. Importance of DNA copying during reproduction. We need to mention two important points, because this DNA copying that is responsible for transmission of parental features or parental characters to the offsprings. Transfer parental characters to offsprings. Okay, so DNA is helping to transfer parental character to offsprings. That is one thing. And the second thing is that is this DNA copying, that is sometimes it is leading to variations. Okay, so that is creating variations also. Variations over generations. Okay, so that is also leading to certain genetic variations. Okay, while variation, not this is genetic variations. While copying DNA, that genetic material variations are getting created in the genetic material. So it is making, or it is becoming a reason for genetic variations also. Okay, next question. Why is variation beneficial to the species but not necessarily for the individual? Okay, see, this variation that is allowing all organisms to exist in diverse conditions. Okay, variations, just now we said variations, they are helping organism to exist in different conditions. Okay, and if that variations are not there, in the absence of variation, a species that will get restricted into a particular area, right? If there is slight change in the environmental condition in another region, that species cannot exist there because it is adjusted to these environmental conditions. So there the species will get restricted. If there is no variation, that species that will get restricted to particular habitat, right? And if there is any change, is there any drastic change in that particular area, like that may be environmental conditions or man-made conditions, whatever it may be, that species will get wiped off, right? Any changes in that condition, that species cannot exist there. See, that may affect the existence of that species, so that that species will get wiped off from that area. See, if some variations, if there is some individual with variation and those organisms are able to survive in that changed condition, variations make changes in individuals. And if these, suppose these individuals are able to survive, that makes a, in that habit, those organisms will be able to survive. right? But variations are present in a single organism. There would be very little for it to survive, right? So if there are very less organism which is able to survive, so that organism's existence that may affect the existence of that particular organism. So organisms are beneficial. How it is becoming beneficial here? For the first part, we need to answer it is beneficial because it is helping the organism to adjust with the conditions which is having changes, right? For the change situation also, it is helping the organism to get adjusted. But it is not necessarily for the individual, right? Because only one organism is getting changed, that may affect the existence of that organism. The chances becoming very less. Chances of existence that is becoming very less. Clear? So these are the two important questions from the first topic. Okay. So here we are getting one activity, which is like for moving to the next topic, like modes of reproduction used by single organism. So first, before that, we need to discuss one activity. Like first one is, we are going to explain this activity first, right? Then by comparing these activities, we will learn about the modes of reproduction which is used by single organisms. So organisms are there, importance of what is reproduction, what is the necessity of reproduction, what is variation, what is the importance of that variation. Up to that we have discussed. Now, so for reproduction, there are different types of organisms. They are following different modes of reproduction. So about the different modes of reproduction, we are going to learn. For that purpose, we are discussing two activities here. First one is, first, dissolve about 10 grams of sugar in 100 ml of water. Okay, we are going to dissolve 10 grams of sugar in 100 ml of water. Then take 20 ml of that solution. After dissolving, take 20 ml from that solution in a test tube and add a pinch of yeast granules to it. So first, we are taking water, we are dissolving 10 grams of sugar. We are making a sugar solution. Okay. Then taking 20 ml from that in a test tube, then adding yeast granules, pinch of yeast granules to that. Okay. Then put a cotton plug on the mouth of the test tube. We are closing that test tube with a cotton plug. Okay. Then we are keeping in a warm place. Okay. In a slight warm place, we are keeping that. And after 1 or 2 hours, if you are checking that, take a small drop of that yeast culture from the test tube. Just take one or two drops of that yeast culture, yeast which is grown in that sugar solution. Take that from the test tube on a slide and cover that with the cover slip. Okay. Then that slide we need to watch under a microscope. What you can observe here, the observations you need to write. Okay. So while doing that activity, first you need to make the sugar solution in 100 ml of water, 10 grams of sugar. Then 20 ml of that solution you need to take in a test tube. Then add pinch of yeast granules. You need to add yeast granules in that. So after making that, you need to cover that with a cotton plug. The test tube you need to cover with a cotton plug, and you need to keep that in a warm place. Then this yeast organisms, they will grow. So after 1 or 2 hours, see, yeast in every 90 minutes they will divide. Okay. So after 1 or 2 hours, if you are checking, how you will check? Take 1 or 2 drops on a slide and cover that with a cover slip. Then observe under the microscope. There you can observe this yeast. See, these are the yeast cell, one yeast cell among that. And here you can see the nucleus, and that will form a bud. Okay, how the yeast is dividing, that is forming a bud. And here again, that bud will be having a nucleus, and the cytoplasm, here the cytoplasm is also going to divide. It is forming a bud-like structure, and here nucleus copy also will get created, and the cytoplasm is also dividing. So like that, this is the parent yeast cell. So here chain of yeast cells will be formed, daughter cells will be formed. Okay, when you're checking that from the parent cell, that will form buds, like a chain of yeast cell will get formed. So buds, each bud which is formed, that will detach from the parent yeast cell, and that will grow individually, and after some time again this cell which is formed from the parent cell, that will get detached, and that also will grow. That also again, on that also bud will form, and with separate nucleus, then cytoplasm division. So that process is continuing, it is growing, so that a chain of yeast cells will get formed from the parent cell, right? So here you can see the growth of that. So we can see yeast reproducing, yeast cells are reproducing by forming buds. Okay. Yeast cells, they are reproducing by forming buds. Okay. So on slide, what you can see, a white mass you can see. On slide, right? Clear? So that's how, this is one method of reproduction. See, why we are doing this activity? Just to understand the mode of reproduction. So if you are doing in sugar solution, how yeast is reproducing? By forming this chain of yeast cells, or by forming these kind of buds, it is reproducing. Okay. And another activity, activity number 2, this is by using a wet slice of bread. Okay, a bread piece, when we are keeping the bread for so many days, definitely you can see some black color mold on that, something black color dust particles, something like that, which is spread over that, right? Why? So a wet slice of bread we are keeping, and we are keeping it in a cool and moist place, dark place we are keeping. Okay. So observe the surface of the slice with a magnifying glass. If you are observing with a magnifying glass, you can record the observations. How you can see? You can see the structure like this. Okay. There you can see a mold. What is the observation? After doing the activity, you will get an observation like this. Mold, which is called rhizopus. Rhizopus. Okay, this is a fungus which is formed on that bread slice in a wet condition or moisture condition, and that mass will increase. If you're keeping for more days, that mass will increase. A brown dust like particle which is spread over that, you can see. Okay. Okay, here you can see the spore formation in rhizopus. This is a spore. Here this part is a filament. This is called as hyphae. This hyphae, and here the spores you can see, these are the spores. Okay, first it will come as the some what dust particle like ash color, then later if again you are keeping that, that will become dark color, black powder like things. That is a fungal growth which is called as rhizopus, which is forming spores. Okay, so here how it is multiplying, again this spore, it will fall on that same bread slice, and here it will form hyphae, and that filament it will form. Again spores will get created, again that also will, after maturation, that will open, and again that spores will come, so that the growth, that mass will increase. So here how it is forming by spores, it is that mode of reproduction it is using. Okay. So these two activities we are discussing here. Okay, that is helping us to, now we can compare here. Here, first activity, buds formed, right? That is one mode of reproduction. In next activity, here you can see different mode of reproduction, right? Here, spores, through spore formation, it is reproducing, right? So here the organisms are using different methods for reproduction. That's what from both the activities what we can learn. Organisms are following different methods for reproduction. Okay. So here comparing, and you can see the contrast in both, in which yeast is growing in the first case and in the second case how that bread mold is growing. Okay. So here we are going to discuss this reproductive process. So different organisms, they are actually reproducing and they're using different modes by which various organisms are reproducing. That reproduction, modes of reproduction, that is based on their body design or body feature. Body, depending upon the body of that organism, each organism is reproducing. They're following different methods for reproduction. That depends upon the body feature of that or body design of that organism. Okay, so there are different modes of reproduction. The different modes of reproduction we'll be discussing in the next class. Okay, thank you.